All right. Good morning, everybody. We're so happy to have you today. My name is Claudia. Welcome to the Reclaiming Ancestral Knowledge Workshop Series. Today is our fourth installment of this workshop series called DIY Build Your Culinary Botanica. I'm here from NYC Parks Green Thumb. I am a project coordinator along with my colleague Tawana. We'll both be hosting this workshop partnered in partnership with Chef Yadi and Adriano. So we are the Division of Parks Department that works with community gardens across the city. Thank you so much to everybody who's joining us. A special, so much thank yous to Chef Yadi and Adriano for really thinking so intentionally about this amazing workshop series that couldn't have come at a better time, that's really honoring the ancestral traditions of people from the Caribbean and also how it can be used by pretty much anybody at this time. So thank you to everybody that's tuning in. We're still in a pandemic, so we realize that these are still very uncertain times. Green Thumb is especially grateful to our community gardeners for everything they're doing to keep their community gardens safe and healthy. And we hope everyone here is safe and their loved ones are safe as well. So some housekeeping rules throughout this webinar. It's important that everybody stay muted. Tawana and I will be doing our best to keep everyone except Chef Yadi muted. If you have a question or comment, please do note it in the chat. Chef Yadi will be reading your comments and questions throughout, but if she misses any, me and Tawana will be sure to share it with her at the end of the workshop or when she says it's time for questions. So definitely please just be sure to stay on mute and type your questions in the chat box. We are recording this workshop, so if you choose not to be on camera, just please turn off the camera icon, although the video is pinned to Chef Yadi, so that's who you'll be seeing throughout. And finally, I just wanted to give a special shout out to the Highbridge Gardens Coalition. There are 4 gardens that are part of this coalition. And today, this workshop was actually supposed to be there in person. But, you know, they really wanted to bring Chef Yadi to it. So we're not able to do it, but at least here we are in the webinar. So that is La Isla Garden, Woody Crest Garden, Las Casitas, and Taqua. So thank you to all these special gardens. We miss you. We wish we could be there in person, but we're going to have a fun workshop. And thank you, everybody. Now we're going to turn it over to Chef Yadi.
Yay! So you guys already know, this is the first time you've been to a class with me. How we start, calling the ancestors and saying thank you, especially that yesterday was Juneteenth, right? So I hope that we all had a moment to rest, to reflect, to think. As Claudia said, what a poignant time we are in our history and in moment right now that we must recognize. You know, there is so much more going on than our pandemic. We are in a uprooting and an uprising and a reimagining and a redesigning, in a moment of doing exactly what we are here today doing, which is leaning into that ancestral knowledge and wisdom. So I always say, you only know what you know, but we're here to crowdsource knowledge and to share in community and unity. And while I am a trained natural food chef and a holistic health coach, my first training came from the ancestors, right? From my great grandmother, my mother, and my grandmother. You know, who I'm from Dominican Republic. I grew up being sent to Dominican Republic, and my families were farmers, seeing them grow sugarcane and yuca and plátano and ajicitos and culantro and cilantro, right? That's where we come from. We come from this richness, from these rich cultures. And a lot of times when we talk about where our food comes from or what our food does for us, we don't honor how it got here or who brought it here, right? And so it's so important to honor our matrix of, because I know that we have community gardeners here, but we also have some people from far away. And it's so important to honor what a special space our community gardens are. And that if we could be there right now, we would be there holding space, because they are such an important hub of the same thing a botanica does, a sacred healing and communal space. So much more happens there than just growing food. You know, connections are made, neighborhoods, wisdom is shared. And these are really spaces that we have to uplift and protect and lean into, not just those of us that grow food, all of us. This is an everybody problem, everything that's happening in our community right now. And so is our health and wellness, our divine right to feel well and to ancestrally heal and culturally heal in a beautiful way, you know, in a way that we don't feel denigrated or shamed because we're all doing the best that we can with what we got, right? Ain't that right? We're all doing the best that we can with what we got. Don't nobody want to be sick and tired, and doesn't anybody want to have sick and tired family members, kids, or themselves? So part of this series, and part of having partnerships like this, which are so deeply important to me, is that we have to unlock the crystal castles under which we hold information and knowledge also, right? Storytelling is the oldest form of preserving wisdom. We will pass down stories and recipes and oral traditions and folklore and remedies. These weren't, you didn't have to pay tons of money to get a piece of paper to tell you to have the knowledge. So while I deeply honor and love having access to institutional education, I see that as a privilege, and I think that it's very, very important for us to continue these traditions where we gather ourselves and our elders and we share and we do some talking, some walking and talking it out in the kitchen. So that's exactly what we're here today to do. We've been building on this beautiful series called Reclaiming Ancestral Knowledge and Wisdom, because there's lots of different healing modalities. So we're all bio individuals, so you have to find what works for you. But today and in this series, we've been talking about the use of plants and herbs and medicines. Now, I know before we talk about Tylenol, Robitussin, Motrin, any of those OTC and stuff, I know everybody got some kind of home remedy. Like, I'm Dominican, I grew up with tons of stuff. When you had a cough, the first thing that was going in my mouth was some thing with onions and watercress inside of it and garlic. So does anybody have any home remedies that they've ever used for something, for a cough, for an allergy, for a cut, for a burn, for a sting? Because a lot of this is about a garlic broth, turmeric, honey, and homemade elderberry, honey, and camel tea. Yes, yes. We ain't new to this. We true to this. My abuelita would give me chamomile tea for everything. Un tecito for everything, right? Garlic and ginger, aloe for cuts and rashes. Yes, we all know something. We all have an ancestral modality or a healing tool, a technique. It didn't come from Dwayne Reed. Turmeric for bloating. Okay, it did not come from companies and from pharmacies. It came from nature. It came from herbs. It came from plant medicine. So when we talk about building our culinary botanica, I really wanted to have people send in pictures of their pantry, like wherever you keep your spices. But I don't want to make this like a home renovation show or or cause any anxiety, right? Because it's like your your kitchen, your kitchen got to be your pharmacy, right? Let's run that bar back. The kitchen has to be your, and when I say pharmacy, we're spelling pharmacy FARM, right? Your pharmacy, but also your pharmacy, healing and wellness. So I don't know if anybody's ever been to a botanica. You can shout out in the group if you have, or do you know what a botanica is? But for our intents and purposes, I'm calling the pantry your botanica because it's a space in Latin American communities and Hispanic communities of healing, of holding space and community of healing, of using plants, of using herbs, of using spiritual medicine as forms of healing, right? Things that came from our ancestors. Because when we talk about decolonizing our diets and decolonizing our wellness, we have to talk about even decolonizing our minds, where things come from. So for me, it's always about eating. We have to eat for seasoning, but also for healing, right? For sazón, for sabor, pero también para sanación, para curar, right? Curandera. I love to play the Celia Cruz song, Yerbera. Traigo hierba santa pa la garganta. Right? I cannot sing, guys, but I get so hyped because it's there. It's there in our songs. It's there in our writings. It's there in our poems. It's there in our art. Um, that we use different herbs and spices and medicines to heal. So this is a very Americanized approach, or a very um Eurocentric approach, when I say from a culinary perspective, that we only learn about herbs and spices for flavor. Let me run that back. That we tend to only learn about herbs and spices for flavor. So the reason why I get out into my community and why I teach about the basis of Afro-Latinidad and Afro-Latino cooking, and honoring where the seeds even came from and how they were used, right? Because we can't talk about rice showing up in a plantation in the Carolinas without talking about where that seed, that grain came from, which it came from Africa and Brazil, right? So we have to honor the whole food, not just the flavor, where it came from, why it's used, and what part of the food we use. So you'll see in the assets that you've been sent, because this is rich, y'all. This is really rich. You think that we can cover everything that herbs and spices do in one day? Not never, not ever. We could have a sleepover for days, right? This is to send you on your culinary journey, on your curiosity journey to use. So I send you a guide that's, I like to call it ajicitos de zanahorias, right? Because we're saying A to Z. You know, there's that New York guide, apples to zucchini. I always want to see things in English, Spanish, any languages our communities have, and culturally relevant. But I send you like an allspice to thyme, different herbs that we can use, the parts of the herbs that we use, and the folklore remedies, right? Because we have to say that, because science doesn't like to investigate the medicinal impact of herbs. They want to drive us to pharmaceutical drugs. So, like we talk about, at the base of aspirin is white willow bark, right? So if you let white willow bark accumulate, right, you will have less headaches. So it's starting to know this indigenous knowledge that we come from, and starting to build it and into our everyday life. ABC, always be cleansing, always be detoxing, right? Your organs, your body, it all works together. So it's really, really important for us to be strengthening, cleansing, and detoxifying our kidney, our livers, our lungs, and our skin, like our major organs that support detoxification and cleansing. Now, to jump out of sounding all sciencey, this can be super, super delicious for us, right? Because we can use herbs and spices to do so. And not all herbs and spices were created equal. So if you've been to some of the other class, we're going to talk about this. So on average, I want to know, how long is everybody keeping their spices for? So if I ran up in your pantry right now, like if I was Guy Fieri or something, what would I find? Like, how long has that adobo been in there? How long has uh that longer than it should be? I would be in trouble, right? Because first we're gonna talk about some for years. I played the fifth. Ooh, forever, sadly. Okay, okay. So when we talk about, so when we're, so when we talk about, someone said gone usually fast because I'm always cooking. That's great. But when we talk about health and wellness, again, when we talk about health and wellness, we hardly ever talk about the quality of our spices, or thinking about how long our spices have been on. You start focusing, I need to, buy all these greens, all these vegetables, I need to get them, I need to change my whole way of eating, I need to stop with the pernil or the arroz and habichuelas. Back it up. Let's start all the way with, what was the world's first currency? Spices, honey. Spices was the money, honey. Okay? Ain't that right? Ain't that right? So there's health currency, health bucks. Now we're talking about health and wealth bucks, right? They don't want us to think about this, but this is the truth. So our spices at their base So I always say before you even think about the protein that you're sourcing, the carbohydrates that you're sourcing. Sorry, my fridge is too loud. The grains that you're sourcing, which we care about all that stuff. Everybody uses spices. So before I start to incorporate something new into your diet, I want to talk about what you're already using. So let's get into spices real quick. So spices, we can buy them in whole form, right? The seed, or we can buy them in ground form, right? But as you know, I've spoken to you guys about it's really important where you get your spices from. So before we even talk about how long you've had them, I very intentionally have these two brands right here, which don't pay me, and we can share other information if you have them. But we've talked about irradiated versus non-irradiated spices, right? Ooh, irradiated versus non-irradiated spices. So this is a spice from a company called Morton and Bassett, and it says on the front, all natural, salt-free, non-GMO, preservative-free, no MSG. Now this is what I like, non-irradiated. Now why would my food have to tell me non-irradiation, right? Let's break down the word. That means there are spices that have radiation. There's something wrong with the video. Can you guys see me okay? Okay. That means that there are spices that have radiation. So what we don't pay for, sometimes we pay for the savings. We want to buy the cheapest spices, right? We may pay for it with our health, right? So non-irradiated spices are spices that have not been through a high radiation process to kill. Yeah, so Carla, yo no sabía because they don't teach us this in school, Carla. We don't got to feel bad about this, right? We have to share this information. But what they do is when you go to, I went to the Natural Gourmet Institute inside of the ICE Culinary School and paid a lot of money to go to a health supportive natural school so that I could work with cancer patients and health supportive spas and really fancy restaurants. And you know what I did? I went back to my hood because my people need to know this because they deserve to know this, right? This information. Okay, then. So we need, so I hope that you spread this information with one or two people if you don't know this. And that the first thing that you can do is start to switch out some of your spices. So we don't want radiation on our spices. Imagine radiation is going on our spices, is going on our food, is going in the canned foods. All of that is adding up into your body. Yeah, this is where the high blood pressure comes from, the tumors, the cysts, the cholesterol, the irregularities in our diet. So all I'm trying to do is take it back, right? Take it back to how the ancestors was doing it. My ancestors were getting cinnamon from the tree bark, right? And I would like no radiation on my cinnamon, right? So two brands that I like is Simply Organic. Yes, some organic spices are also radiated. Yeah, so you want to see non-irradiated or you want to do research into the brand because hold on, this is so funny. Oh, someone said they reached out to me before, and here you are, synchronicity. You're meant to be here today. So the point is that there you want to do your research because just like labels on companies, companies don't have to tell you anything about their products, right? They can make up a lot of funky stuff about in the front. So you always want to look source, right? How do we keep the dollar in our community, and how do we keep companies that are divesting from our health out of our pockets? And that's by looking into how do you spend your money as a company and how do you spend your money making your product when you get my coin. So I love to use Simply Organic. I love to use Morton and Bassett. And I love to grow. See what's happening back there. If you were in the window farming class, you learned how to grow herbs on your windowsill in a Tupperware, right? So because everything comes from a seed, right? So the other way that we can curate herbs and seeds at a lower price is, hey, make yourself a gardener, friends. Hey, Highbridge community gardeners all up in here because gardeners have access to what? Seeds, right? beautiful thing. What's inside that tomato? A seed, right? Seeds and herbs, and drying them out is also a beautiful process. So I've given you an A to Z allspice to thyme, so that you can, and I've included, there's way more herbs and spices, but I included the highlight of herbs that are really medicinal, and we'll go into the different medicinal aspects of some herbs, but so that you can build out slowly. So as an herb is finishing and you're going to replace it, right? Because I'm not telling you to go spend all your coins like Happy Healthy Latina told me to. No, I want you to, as you know, once we know better, we do better. So you start to switch out one spice at a time. Keep your eyes on the brands that I've been talking about, because everybody always has sales. And then to show you, so we're talking about growing our own fresh herbs. Another amazing way is to impart. There's another really simple flavoring tool, which I love. Have we ever made a bouquet garni? Say yes, say no. Yes, Nat said. So I see yes, no, hey, hey, ho. Okay, so there's there's mixed things. So a bouquet garni. So you're gonna get yourself the wax, the twine, the same thing that we tie the pasteles with, right? The holidays, I was the pastel holder, so I used to hold all the hilo around my neck before I was old enough to wrap them. That was my very important job. So you're gonna get yourself some twine, and again, this comes in culinary cooking and French cooking. They'll teach you this, but this is something that we can be doing in all cooking. So we're going to take herbs such as bay leaf, thyme, and sage, which are carminative herbs. We're going to talk about herbs have different properties to them, right? So like cayenne is an antiseptic and a sudorific herb. So they make you sweat and they get you hot and they build up heat in your digestive system, right? This is when it starts to get fun and alchemy. You can use different herbs for different things, not just for flavor, but for the healing effect and compound that you're trying to have. So this is also really good for flatulence, right? When we eat those beans and those grains, a lot of times we feel puffy in our belly, or we feel flatulence, we feel farty, right? So a great way to combat flatulence is simply to soak our beans and our grains to break down the enzyme inhibitors. Let's get into it. I'm here to give you the nitty gritty, okay? And also, we don't want to put down those habichuelas. Make yourself a little bouquet garni. A bouquet garni is grabbing 2 or 3 of the herbs. So I've got 2 or 3 bay leaves here. I've got tomillo and I've got sage. You're gonna put them together and you're going to tie them together. You're going to put this into your soup, your stock, your beans, your broth, and about 10 minutes before you're done cooking, you're going to pull this out. You're not going to eat this, okay? Because all of the flavor and all of the healing benefits is going to have been extracted into the herbs, into the sauce. And then this is also a lovely way to dry herbs. So I would take my basil or my cilantro there if I want to. You hang them with twine, and you can put them in a Ziploc bag, or you can hang them up. It smells lovely inside of the cabinet of your pantry. 2 or 3, pon dos tres clavito, little screws, and you hang them, and that smells beautiful. And then you're drying out fresh herbs. So I just gave you the quick fast. If you want to go to online, or if you want to go to a supermarket, or if you are still in quarantine and you have more time and you're growing herbs and you're going deeper into your journey and you want to start doing things like this and then giving these out, like, forget sage, you know, giving these out in the holidays and like doing things like that, you can definitely do that. So it's really, really important. And I think you guys can see, I'm going to take it out really quickly. I want to spend all day here with you guys, but just to show you by that guide, all of the different herbs and spices. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a medicinal sofrito. And now that we know about sourcing our spices, now I'm going to tell you about the time on the spices. So you have some pretty good guesses, but for your ground spices, and you're going to find this on the back of when you buy the spices, your ground spices is 2 to 3 years, right? But it'll tell you on the side. I bet you never looked at the expiration date of your spice. Not never, right? So I want you to look at it. This one says February 5th, 2024 on the side. So I want you to use the concept from the kitchen, which is FIFO, first in, first out. Don't be buying 3 garlic powders, okay? First garlic you use that one, and then finish it out. Look at today, that's a nice little project. Look at the expiration date on your spices. For whole spices, and this is why the whole spice will be more expensive, it's going to be 3 to 4 years. Because the whole spice, you can do what? You can take the whole spice and the whole seed, and you can grind it, right? So I have some cardamom and I have some fennel here. Your cinnamon, right? What happens to my cinnamon stick or my nutmeg? Anybody ever have nuez moscada and canela on their coffee or tea? Their cafecito? That's very Latino, very Dominican, right? Yeah, so great. When you're in the shop and they're making your cafecito, girl, they don't take no. They take the whole nutmeg like that. When I was in Cuba, that's what they did too. No other way to have cafe. Smell that. Oh my God. Beautiful. So the thing is that you'll see in your so whole spice is 3 to 4 years. Now here we go. Seasoning blends. Anybody got this dash, adobo, Lowry's, any of those pre-seasoning mix? 12 months. 12 months and it gotta go, Joe. There's no flavor and there's no healing in that. How about that? Herbs. Herbs that you dry out yourself, 3 to 4 years. So now it's making sense because that adobo or that pre-mixed thing that I bought with high sodium that doesn't have any of the adaptogenic properties, which are herbs that calm your nerves, doesn't have any of the carminative properties, doesn't have any of the heating properties, anti-inflammatory properties, right? They're really cheap. They're garbage after 12 months. So I would prefer to pay a little bit more for the whole spice, and I know that it's keeping for a longer time. Unless you're cooking, you have a catering company, or you have a really large family and you're using those dry spice blends really, really fast. And then if you are, you need to be looking at that sodium intake, right? You need to be able to monitor, because we had a class where we made our own adobo, right? So we used our turmeric, we used our black pepper, we used our garlic powder, we used our sea salt, we used our cumin, and we made adobo. Adobo with no sodium, right? With not enough sodium for a week and a quarter teaspoon. So another big favorite, anise, star of anise, right? Because we have, when we talk about the, bring that down. Sorry. Oh, and for me, have we ever heard of like emanagogue herbs or menagogue herbs? Now we're getting real nerdy. But for example, for like women, a lot of women, we suffer from menstrual pain. Over 50% of women suffer from PMS or dysmenorrhea or amenorrhea, which is light menses or very heavy menses or PCOS or endometriosis. And especially women of color, we go on these deep, long journeys to get these diagnoses, right? And if you don't have health insurance, the gap that you're in to get care, and you think that there's nothing that you can do but load yourself up with painkillers, right? Well, no. Emanagogue herbs are herbs that increase blood flow in your pelvic area and your uterine area, right? And antispasmodic herbs like ginger. So they stop the cramping, they stop the contractions of your uterus, right? So the recipes that I included today, for example, the ginger chimichurri, That's great for PMS. Yes, you can treat your PMS with chimichurri. The detox sofrito, this is our ABC always be cleansing sofrito. So you have my regular sofrito recipe, but in this sofrito recipe, we're gonna use dandelion root. We're gonna use watercress. Are any of my gardeners growing dandelion root or watercress or thyme? Beautiful. So dandelion root, very bitter, right? A very, very bitter green. In Ayurvedic food, there's expansive and contractive foods. So foods that warm us up, our digestive system, or heal us, or help us expand, or help us cold foods contract. So I find though that it's very hard to get a kid and or someone that didn't grow up. I grew up eating berro, but that didn't grow up eating these bitter greens, right? To just start incorporating them into your diet. It's not all smoothies and salads, guys. So when we talk about making sofrito, a sofrito is a great way. It's a marinade and a blend that we've used as a salad dressing, as a dip, a rub on our protein, and it delivers all of the health benefits, right? And it's raw. It delivers all of the health benefits of the dandelion greens and the watercress, but you don't have to eat all the bitterness. And then we're going to use turmeric root and garlic. And so as we've talked about before with our garlic, we smash our garlic 10 minutes before we start using it, right? Alchemy, because we want to activate our foods. Whenever you smash garlic, you're activating the allicin. So did our ancestors know this? No. The technical term. Did they do this though? Did they use the pilon? Did they use the pilon? Yes. So they were already activating the foods. They knew what they were doing. So that's like why my great grandmother lived to 99 years old. 99 years old. Still making a sofrito. These are variations on her sofrito recipes. Okay? And then for turmeric, I always recommend that you use either the non-irradiated turmeric, right? Turmeric has a black peppery taste, or again, anti-spasmodic and anti-inflammatory, the turmeric root. Have we seen the fresh turmeric root? Right? Great for color in our pasteles too. And then we're gonna use a sour orange. 2 ajicitos, right? So we like to put these, maybe her mom makes turmeric tea every night. So I like to put my turmeric into my sofritos, into my chimichurri, into my rubs, into my salad dressing, because you want to be building the immunity, right? So you want to let that build. And when you blend turmeric with black pepper, it boosts the anti-inflammatory benefits. So we just put olive oil in here, and now we're going to put apple cider vinegar. And you have the recipe, so you have the measurements, okay? But I just want to get into really showing you guys how to build, how easy it is to build these marinades. Because when you think about, oh, how do I use these spices? Hold on. Give me 1 second. You use a Vitamix or a NutriBullet or a blender, or like I always say, the ancestors didn't have any blenders, so they chopped it up real fine, and they used the what? The pilon, right? The mortar and pestle, the original from Hippocrates, the original medicinal tool. And is it a coincidence that our ancestors also used that? No. I want to show you guys. Oh my God, it smells so good. So now you have this beautiful sofrito using your dandelion greens, your watercress, your cilantro, your peppers, your vinegar, your olive oil, your turmeric, your black pepper. I just want to show you variations and extensions. So the recipes that you have are, you have a seasoning, you have a vinaigrette, a salad dressing, what we call the OCC vinaigrette, orange, cumin, and cardamom. And then you also have the medicinal chimichurri, which we're gonna make next. Does anybody have any questions? So I gave you from whole spices that you should have all the way to, someone said, well, other bitter, yes, mustard greens will also work. Where can you find stinging nettles are also good. This is so wherever you're going to sub that out, don't add the dandelion greens and the stinging nettles and the, you're gonna sub out one detox, one bitter green. So don't layer more than one. That's why we still have the cilantro, the acid, and the fat to balance those flavors. You can find the watercress either at an Asian supermarket or a Latino supermarket and bodega. That's where I tend to find mine. A Korean market or my like Dominican supermarket on my sea town carries watercress because Latinos eat berro. I grew up eating like berro and cucumber salad, which was like a detox salad that I was having every night growing up. The cucumber and the watercress, and my dad would just put fresh lime juice on it. Again, so I wanted to be, and so when we also talk about for eating for different conditions, there's apparative herbs, right? So herbs that open up our appetite. Then there's the carminative and the calming herbs, the digestive herbs, like whenever what I call the witch's brew, whenever your stomach hurts and you have something with like fennel, anise, cumin, cinnamon, ginger, right? These are calming herbs on your digestive system. So the next thing that we're gonna swap out, I'm gonna give this to you. So we made our bouquet. So we made our bouquet garni, right? We talked about how to switch our herbs and our spices. We made our sofrito, but I also included for you guys, guys, are in your pantry, do you only keep herbs and spices or do you also keep seeds? I want you to start to extend your pantry to thinking about nuts and seeds as well. So here I have hemp seed. Here I have pumpkin seed. Here I have sesame seeds, right? So the same thing, when we think about our pantry and building out our botanica, now our botanica has fresh herbs, right? Fresh spices, nuts and seeds from which we can build flavors, even milks. One thing that I love to do just from hemp seed is to mix it with dates and a little bit of vanilla and water and make my own milk, right? That's really high in omega-3s, 6s, 9s, protein, anti-inflammatory. It's dairy free. So if you have asthma, if you have any mucus issues. So all of these foods, I could riff on them for hours and for days, is what I'm saying. And when we pull on these, so all I know is that every time that I open my botanica, aka my pantry, anything I'm building from, when I make my sofrito, when I make my adobo, when I make my barbecue dry rub, when I make my curry, right? I'm not pre-buying these mixes. I'm reclaiming, making my own. I also have mustard seed here. You can make your own mustard, right? These things this is where they came from. It didn't come from a pre-made bottle because we want to extract the health benefits that come with it. When we just get the condiments and the dried spices in bottles or irradiated, we're cutting out a whole part of the healing ecosystem. Okay, and so what I have here is a chimichurri. Let me get the base of it. So what I have here that we're gonna make next is, who's ever made a chimichurri before? Who's ever had chimichurri? It's a rub that's local to Argentina. It's used on a lot of meats. But chimichurri, again, is a green. So it's like, listen, y'all, we need to switch it up. We don't always need to be having pesto. I need a charger. We don't always need to be having pesto, right? And hummus. So we can have sofrito as a dip. We can have chimichurri. We can have these really bright vinaigrettes. Like, you know, we can switch up the salad dressing. So we're gonna make a chimichurri. And for our chimichurri, we're gonna be using some fresh ginger, right? So ginger is one of those herbs that when you read into it, it lends into so many of the herb categories. When we're talking about when they're anti-spasmodic, when they're anti-inflammatory, when they're carminative, when they're pseudophoric, ginger lends into many of these categories. So it's a great one to always be including. So we're gonna use fresh ginger. From my window, we're gonna use some fresh basil, some fresh mint, some fresh parsley. Also from my window, do we regrow our scallions, right? I think I cut these in class. I've cut these in class with you guys like 3 different times. And all I do is I keep them in water and the tips regrow. Who says you can't, right? Money don't grow on trees. When's the last time you walked in and got some free scallions at the supermarket? Let a sister know. Let a sister know. Okay, no, right? So let's grow some of these scallions. Does anybody have any questions? I'm gonna use scallions. Your girl likes heat, so I'm gonna use a jalapeno. That's optional or not. I'm also gonna use a half of a shallot and the juice of an orange. So this tastes really good on your meats, your fish tacos, your salad, your vegetables if you're grilling or roasting them. So instead of buying these high sodium rubs or marinades, or also with things like monosodium glutamate inside of them, right? This is all natural. We're building on good fats, herbs. And then we're gonna use, so for our sofrito, we use an apple cider vinegar. For this one, we're going to use a red wine vinegar. So I've also indicated that in building your botanica or your pantry, there's different vinegars and different oils for different jobs. So apple cider vinegar we use in our sofrito because of those great anti-inflammatory properties. And sofrito normally has white vinegar in it. So wherever you can, make that switch. But vinegars that I love to use for your chimichurri, a red wine vinegar or a pomegranate vinegar is very nice also. Again, this comes from natural, used a lot in Middle Eastern cooking. We have, just like our communities, there's unity in community. We borrow and we blend and we lend into each other. A pomegranate vinegar lends really nicely into a chimichurri. And you're getting that high antioxidant and anti-inflammatory benefits of the pomegranate. And of course, our garlic. So then imagine seasoning your foods in this way. When you're cooking, using your sofrito, using your non-irradiated spices, making your own adobo, right? Having your own chimichurri or salad dressing, grinding the spices. It's over for deeply different flavor, right? It's also green, but a different deeply flavor. You should keep these in your fridge. They last for a week in your fridge, but if you don't plan to use use it within the week, put it inside of an ice cube tray, and boom, pop out a flavor bomb anytime you want to cook with your sofrito or you want to defrost for your marinade. So that way you're also saving money and you're also preserving it, right? Refrigeration, canning, and jarring, like we did canning and fermentation last time, original forms of and methods of preservation. So I'm throwing so much at you guys. Nobody should ever know. What am I using as a blending appliance? I'm using a NutriBullet, which I take out on the field all the time because it's easy. But like I said, a sharp knife and a mortar and pestle or pilon will also do the job for you. None of these brands pay me, so I'm about what works for you. Someone else said something else.
Yadi, we had a question a while ago. Can I read it to you?
Yeah.
Okay, so they were asking about the Ziploc bag when you were talking about drying herbs. It says, does the Ziploc bag help the drying process or just to keep it neat?
Well, it helps from exposition. It helps you're drying it out so it closes off the air from it. So it's gonna dry out at a faster rate. And it's not gonna oxidize in terms of turning like super ugly, super fast. So putting it inside of the bag is just better for exposing it from the environment and for food safety, and it will dry out faster. And I find that you can also label it. Like if you're drying out, not just like you don't need to buy an Italian herb seasoning blend, right? You would just dry out some parsley, some cilantro. You could throw some sage in there and crush them up right after you dry them, and you have your own blend. Which is why I like to order these jars as well, or get them at your hardware store. And I just label them on top and I date them so that I know when I got what I got. And peppers are also a really lovely thing that you can grow on your windowsill. You can grow jalapenos. You can grow the small sweet bell peppers. One of my students, because I teach this to youth, so we have high schoolers doing this all around New York, and hopefully, sometime soon again. So I always say if they can do it, they're growing bell peppers and making spice blends and nitcha and inside of their schools. And we just work with what we got. But we got a lot more options than we might think, is what I'm trying to say, as a community, because we have to put these things into our wellness wheel. It's not just medical physicians and caretakers, right? We have to take agency over this and empower ourselves and say, like, these are the things that I'm doing, these are the things that I can do in between that time when you're seeing your physicians, and just preventative care, because we all work so hard and you deserve to live your best life and to enjoy your kids and your family and for them to enjoy you. So I'm just really passionate about sharing this knowledge and these ways of being and eating and communing. Hope y'all find this. I love the energy in this group though. Store-bought salad dressings and ingredients are so bad. Yeah, so when you know what's going into your body, you feel better. It really does. I'm a legally disabled woman. I always share this. I have 4 herniated discs. I have 2 pinched nerves. I broke my shoulder. I have a hairline fracture in my tailbone. And these ladies in the park department can tell you nobody moves around town more than me, because my test is my testimony. I got off tons of pharmaceutical medicines. I was in a deep, inequitable gap in healthcare, like no health insurance, but very sick and tired, is what led me to thinking about, hey, my great grandmother, though, she was busting, popping, and locking until she was 99, right? And my ancestors, nursing homes are a thing here, right? So in our communities, in our cultures, we take care of our owner. The ancestors are the one with the wisdoms and with the knowledge, right? And we're going to be those future ancestors. So what we building on over here, right? What is the foundation that we're giving, and what are we giving our kids? This is an act of resistance and an act of freedom to reclaim feeling well, being well, and FUBU, for us, by us, right? By modalities that came from us. It's not all probiotics and smoothies and salads, like I said, and Pilates. It's also this. I don't even have shoes on right now. Doctors advise elders to get off spices. No, they advise them to get off of spice blends and high pre-made spice blends. So things like adobo, or that have like sodium in them. So that's why I'm telling you to control the salt yourself. So make your own blend, right? Salt is used as a preservation method. And I just want us to also acknowledge that physicians study nutrition for 40 hours. Like my mom just went to a cardiologist that gave her some weird advice, and I asked to engage with a nutritionist, right? A registered dietitian. There are specialists for different things. And sometimes people will talk to us, especially in communities of colors, like, this is it. This is your solution, and this is what it is. I beg you and I implore you to question everything, to look at different healing modalities, to arm yourself with a wellness wheel of different healers, of people that look like you, that understand you, and that don't shame you. So I hope this is my jam, y'all. It just makes me so happy to be together, to share, and to be doing this. And I hope that like you learned something today, or that you'll share something today, or that you'll come back. If you take any pictures, tag Happy Healthy Latina, tag Green Thumb. We love resharing. This was life-giving. Yes. I love you guys.
So I was just going to say, does anyone have any last questions for Chef Yadi before we begin to wrap up?
You got the ebook. Reach out to me, happyhealthylatina@gmail.com. Green Thumb will send out the assets. Please come to the next class. Claudia, is July 20th, you said?
It's July 18th is the next class. So I'll be sending a follow-up email to everybody with the resources in case you didn't get it, and then also the link to the next workshop. And there's going to be another workshop, the final Reclaiming Ancestral Knowledge workshop in September. So we'll be sending out that info as well in the email. Where are the recordings of these classes available? They're on our website, so that will also be sent in a follow-up email if you registered with that email through Eventbrite. So as Chef Yadi comes back, if nobody has any questions, we just wanted to say thank you so much to the facilitators for an amazing workshop. Chef Yadi always just provides so much amazing information.
I love you guys so much. Please come to the next class. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you. I'm going to stop the recording now. Thank you, Chef Yadi.